Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. James Lyonsweiler coming to you live from the WWDNYK studios, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Today we're going to be talking about autism and custody and guardianship. Later on, I will be going into some detail over the newly accepted study funded by the public on aluminum toxicity in the pediatric schedule recommended by CDC and the effect of social distancing and the CDC's catch-up schedule on the expected aluminum toxicity. That study has been just recently accepted through the process of peer review, objective blinded peer review in a significant journal. But before we get to that, I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce you to someone who I think is a very special person, a very special mom, who is in one of these custody/guardianship fights that is always sticky. It's always ugly. There are sometimes two sides to every story. In this case, it's pretty clear that we have overreach on, the party that would assume that they know better for these adult children, her adult children. And so please welcome everyone, Laurel Austin. Hi, Laurel. It's nice to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
And thanks for being here. We've got a bit to talk about. So the first thing I'd like to do is encourage you to go ahead and tell everyone the story. Now, your family situation is you have an ex, and then on top of it, you have 6 children, the older 4 of which are all autistic. Well, on the spectrum, I should say. The middle 2 are the ones that you have adult guardianship for. That's being challenged. So I'm going to let you go ahead and tell your story.
Right, thank you. So I'm the mom of 6 children, and 4 of them the older 4 are all vaccinated, and they are all on the spectrum. And then the younger 2 have never had a vaccine, and they are completely normal. And so for the last 12 years, I've had guardianship of the middle 2 children, who are the most severe affected by the injury. And we've been doing, doctor-approved medical care, and we've been singled out by NBC News. They did a story on me June of 2019, and it's pretty much I had to shut my business down, hate mail, death threats, things like that. And it's a tool being used by my ex-husband to threaten the guardianship.
Okay, so here's what we have, folks. We have a situation where we've got a mom who, like any other parent, seeing that their child is unwell, finds appropriate medical care, tries to seek out the best medical care, has success with that medical care, and then because society is not ready to accept that autism might be reversible / treatable / minimize the severity of autism, increase the quality of life, reduce pain and suffering in kids with autism, she's now suffering the threat of the loss of 2 of her kids. And I can't imagine, other than the death of a child due to any cause, including vaccines, anything that's more heart-wrenching than the fear of losing guardianship and the care over your children. So let's talk in general, without getting into specifics, if we could, of the status of your children before the treatment, the medical care that you sought and received, that your 2 children received. What were they like beforehand? And what were their ages when you started the treatment?
Okay, so it's for Joshua and Jeremy, and Joshua was born in 1990, and Jeremy was in their late 20s when this started in June of 2018. Joshua is not as severe as Jeremy, but he still has his issues too. He is verbal. He can communicate. Has day service program. So before the protocol, it was typical for every few months for day service to call me or his case manager to call me and let me know that Joshua had been in an altercation with someone at the day service. He would also like really harp on people for something. He would get in his mind something that he wanted, and he would harp and harp and harp. Jeremy, who is the younger and more severe, he is completely nonverbal since age 3, self-injurious. He's been biting his arms and hands since he was 6 years old. And
Self-injurious, yeah. Hmm.
yes, and for a period of time, he was extremely aggressive as well. In the younger years, he would smear feces, things like that. And when he was a teenager, seizures had set in. And the seizures got really bad when the aggression was timed with the seizures. And for a period of time, Jeremy had to live outside the home. And he was, for a time, required to be on regular seizure meds, which only made them more frequent and longer in duration. At the very end of the pharma meds that he had been on, he was having over 20 seizures a week, average. And he was, the last seizure that he had before we changed things was a 22-minute seizure. So since they've been on the protocol, Joshua has calmed down. He gets along with people a lot more, and he has set goals for himself. He wants to have a Chevy Silverado black pickup truck, and he knows where he wants to live, and he talks like he wants to get married. These are things that never happened before. And Jeremy, the seizures were helped a great deal by the GAPS diet, but they were completely eliminated after he moved back home in the summer of, or spring actually, of 2018. And he has, with the medical treatment we've been doing, he has started talking. He has up to 12 words. Now, he was in his late 20s when he started talking. He hadn't talked since he was 3 years old.
That's incredible. That's amazing.
It is. It's amazing. Also, the screaming and the tantrum before starting the medical treatment, he was screaming on an hourly basis, sometimes for as long as half an hour, 45 minutes. Today, at this present time, he'll skip days, and if he does have a tantrum, it lasts just a few minutes.
Yeah.
And it's usually just one time during that day, maybe twice. It just depends on the day. Some days are more stressful, especially since everything that's going on in the world right now.
Sure.
And they had to be home from day service for a while. He loves going to day service. But he has started doing other things too. He has started doing things like asking permission and forgiveness. Like if he wants to go somewhere, he'll either try to say please, or he'll even sign language please. He'll make a promise like I'll be quiet, which he associates that to the screaming tantrum, not just he can't talk, you know. And it's just beautiful to see. He's more affectionate. He loves to hit back rubs. He will lean towards me for me to rub his back, and he'll grin and he'll giggle and he'll smile. These are things I had not seen since Jeremy was very, very young. Yeah. And it's just wonderful. His arms are healing from all the biting and the calluses and the sores and all the damage that.
Yeah, see, people don't understand the reality of severe autism. They have no idea the burden, and I don't just mean financial burden, the psychological burden, the pain that the parents suffer, the pain that the kids suffer. And I know a ton of parents that have kids that have been in the past self-injurious, and I'm sure that there are some out there that are still doing that, and it must be so wonderful to be able to get him to a point where his personality could emerge, so that you can have that relationship that any sane parent would want to have with their child. I mean, you're a strong person to see them through to the point where they can start to emerge. we live in a society, and you know this full well, where, Amazon.com, for instance, has banned books, won't sell books that say that there's any possibility of reducing this amount of suffering in autism or minimization of the alleviation of the severity of the symptoms. And yet the scientific literature that I'm familiar with is filled with studies that show that there's improvement. And, for instance, Richard Fry's study on folinic acid, getting them away from the synthetic form of folic acid, getting, in the effects on verbal ability. And there's just a litany. And, of course, in my book, I've cited 1,000 studies, some of which are relevant to this problem. But here we sit in a situation where anybody in the courtroom, including the judge, is not going to have that scientific benefit, and they're going to potentially go for the tropism, the standard party line. There's no study that shows that there's any way to improve these children, that this is genetic, that 100% genetic. They're going to go potentially go for positions that place them and mislead them. They absolutely misrepresent the scientific literature when they do this, and there's no recourse. And so I certainly hope that your legal team has access to the studies, and that they can bring those studies in. Some judges will dismiss it and say, this is not the forum to debate science. There's going to be science on both sides. That's a misunderstanding of the point. The point is they just told you that there's no science, and we just disproved that point. So starting from the point where there is some science that shows that, the phenotypes of autism might be alleviated by environmental interventions, that shows that it's only partly genetic, and in some cases, mostly environmental. So if I could be of any service in providing access to any studies, let me know. I'd be more than happy to do that. I'm not looking for any compensation for anything like that. If we happen, or if anybody has any studies, send them to me and I'll make sure that Laurel gets them. So let's talk about the fundraiser itself. Well, the costs that we're talking about here are significant. You have legal costs you mentioned to me earlier.
Yes, I have an attorney who has filed a petition in court against NBC News, as well as against my ex-husband and the local city, as the local city had released a confidential extended police report to him, and he's not guardian, and so he obtained privileged information that's protected by HIPAA, and he has plastered it all over the world. There's even a person in Ireland who tries to call me and write about me all the time, so it's been a nightmare since June of 2019, rather.
And I don't want to go into the details of the case in any way, but there's the legal costs. And I understand there's a threat to the guardianship here?
Yes, my ex-husband is trying to obtain guardianship of Joshua and Jeremy. One can speculate why. But.
Is this a full exclusive guardianship? Is that how it works in your state, or is there anything like joint guardianship?
Initially, with Joshua, he was turning 18 first. We were going up together to get guardianship, even sharing an attorney for it with the Kansas Legal Services. And at the very last minute, my ex-husband contacted the attorney and said unless he was going to get paid for being a guardian, he had no interest in it. And I do have a letter from that attorney stating that my ex-husband had stated this was why he was pulling out. And then when it came time for Jeremy to turn 18 and get the guardianship in place, I phoned him and just said, just checking, if you've had a change of heart, would you want to do this with me and have a say in what happens with, Jeremy? And he just, no, I don't think so, kind of response. And so it's really just been me, for both of the boys, making the decisions. And of course they have case managers that help, and they're doctors, and we have a very, very wonderful network of people around us that help as well.
Wonderful. So listen, folks, you can help Laurel and these fine young adults, retain respect and dignity that this episode has cost them. It helped Laurel meet her legal costs at the GoFundMe site that's on the screen right now. Go for GoFundMe.com/F/legal assistance with dashes between all these words. Legal assistance for mom of autistic sons. I want to tell you, coming into this interview, I wasn't sure what we were going to get into. I think you're in a very strong position, actually. I think this is a winning case, and this could prove to be a very important landmark case. It doesn't sound like, I don't want to talk strategy, but I'm speculating, you don't have to comment, but it doesn't sound like the other side is so vested in this that they're going to appeal to the Supreme Court unless other entities get behind them, which we've seen in other cases. And then it can become really a serious battle. But I certainly hope you and wish you the very best of success in this initiative beyond the fundraising, and more success in raising your children. And you said you had to put your employment on hold, shut down a business or something?
Yes, I had a 12-year successful photography. I did family portraits, high school seniors. I shot for Miss USA for about 7 different states for several years. And because that's how the trolls were finding me through my Google listing and my website, I had to shut all that down. Even my Facebook fan page, I had thousands and thousands of people on that page, and
Sure.
I just had to shut the thing down because it was coming in daily.
Right. So, being under attack, why would they attack one mom so viciously? This case is really an important case to see that you're attacked so thoroughly, and what are they afraid of in shutting things down? I mean, I was recently banned from the social media website for professionals, LinkedIn, for daring to write an article that included my opinion that the centralization of public health in the United States is a strategic threat to public health. It's a safety threat. And if you think about it geographically, you put all your eggs in one basket in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a target for any foreign enemy that wants to do a bioweapon against us. They take the CDC out, we have no response. I also put in there that I think that they're completely, inept at what they do. But seriously, I mean, this is a very serious scholarly consideration, and they banned me, a PhD scientist, who thinks about things fairly deeply. And I offered an alternative, a complete reformulation of public health in the United States of America. And their answer was, and they admitted it to me by email, they said the reason why we shut you down is because over this article. I'm like, you idiots. Seriously? This is going to be so easy. I'm going to sue your ass, and we're going to get, enough money out of you, Microsoft, to create a new social media network for professionals where we don't have to worry about being censored, and the things that we say, if they have social ramifications and we're willing to suffer them, we're still allowed to say them. We live in an increasingly nanny state, and this has to do with the core central theory of morality. What people are doing that have power to maintain the power that they have as their system falls apart is they're saying what we say is moral, what we say is right. And you can't say things out of that. And they don't allow the natural process of feedback of, if you say something in public, you want to say use the N word, you want to use the R word, if you want to, be homophobic, if you want to be a Nazi, my position is fine. As long as your full legal name is attached to that statement, put it out there in social media. And don't worry, social pressure will take care of that problem. Because I believe in the goodness of humanity. That this other idea that we have to shut down discussions while they're trying to protect the bottom line of profit, they're also preventing normative social control over pathologies and social pathologies. And the bad ideas are going to go underground. They're going to grow underground. They're going to become, create little echo chambers where people agree with each other and confirm each other. And then that stuff's going to come out in a very, very bad way. It's the wrong thing to do. We need that's the value of the open market, the freedom of expression, the open forum, the public forum. That's the value of having people show their ass in public by going out on social media and using the N-word and saying, "Oh, wait a minute, guess what? Now we know who you are. Now we know where you're coming from. You're a hater." So the irony, of course, is that it's becoming increasingly apparent that the people who would attack you, the people that would attack moms protecting their children, they feel perfectly safe and comfortable using hate speech against people who talk about vaccines, using hate speech of people who talk about autism in treatments for autism. But it's not safe. They're delusional. They think that it's safe. And what you're doing is you're showing them, and you're going to show the world, that all you are is a mom who saw that their child was suffering and that you sought medical care. You found medical care, and you want to help other people understand that there are medical ways to reduce human pain and suffering in autism. Notice, I want to point out specifically, we haven't mentioned the type of treatment. I'm not making any recommendation. I'm not going to spread that, any particular kind of treatment. This is a broader philosophical thing, but it is medical. It is done under the care of medical physicians with degrees and with licenses. So if they're willing to put their license on the line and they're willing to treat kids, and stand up to, the denialists and the AMA, more power to you, Laurel. What can I say? You're a good person.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we'll have you back on as you progress, okay? So I want people to be able to keep tabs on it. And here we are, GoFundMe.com, legal assistance for moms of autistic sons. Please share this through messaging, and we'll have you back another time. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much. God
You're
bless.
welcome. Thank you. All right, so the second part of what we're going to talk about today is about IPAK research. We have great news. We have a study on the accumulation of aluminum under the problem that is existing right now, where people are bringing their kids back to the doctor after social distancing. See, the medical community shut themselves down to protect themselves. There was supposed to be a 2-week shutdown, and then what? Open up again? And they were supposed to have 2 weeks to get ready. That's what they asked for, and then it became permanent lockdown, or lockdown whenever we want to. And so the net effect is that we have kids of all ages who have delayed vaccination, or maybe didn't start vaccination because they couldn't get to the doctors. And so what we did at IPAK is we actually we put together a study where we looked at what the effect of delaying vaccination might be on our predicted or expected level of whole body aluminum toxicity. With 250 micrograms of hepatitis B on the first day of life, of course, we can expect that. We've shown in our past studies that we know that that's an acute toxicity dose. In our original study, we showed that over the first 7 months of life, infants' median body weight infant, and this is peer-reviewed research, can be expected to be in aluminum toxicity 70% of our days. But in that first study, we didn't really consider the effect of the renal development, the kidney development. The glomerular filtration rate is not at 100% on the first day of life. In fact, it doesn't become 100% until age 2. And so Grant and Elaine and I put our heads together. We came up with an adjustment for that, and we put that into our model. And in our model, we can see now here, with the standard CDC schedule being in black, the blue line being our pediatric dose limit of aluminum, and these are days of life, that we can now say in the first 7 months of life that children can be expected to be in aluminum toxicity, whole body aluminum toxicity, 100% of their days. That's 6 months plus a month, the first 7 months of life, before the curve comes back down below this pediatric dose limit. And they may be in aluminum toxicity in the first year of their life. It looks like this black line here might not ever go until after 365 days. So anyway, what we did in this study is we looked at the CDC schedule, and our new pediatric dose limit, adjusting for renal development. We compared the CDC's 2019 schedule and catch-up schedule, the CDC catch-up schedule that's on their website, the CDC catch-up schedule with low aluminum options. Whenever there's an aluminum-containing vaccine, you go to see if there's a no aluminum option that reduces total aluminum exposure. And an alternative catch-up schedule, which we propose, that is very similar to the vaccine-friendly plan, but it's for catch-up where you avoid giving more than one aluminum vaccine at a given time. So this would be an expansion of the vaccine-friendly plan. And Dr. Paul's not on this paper, but we're definitely inspired by the vaccine-friendly plan. You can find his book almost anywhere on that. But what we did with this study is we actually put it to use in specific use cases for specific patients. So this is overall, if you're delayed, the overall schedule, I think it assumes a delay of 6 months. And the aluminum toxicity that we calculated was over the first 30 days of life. So if you're following the research that we've done, the CDC schedule, this is the percentage of days in the first 730 days of life that you're in aluminum toxicity, the black one, and then the yellow one is the CDC catch-up schedule. So by using the CDC catch-up schedule with some delay, you're avoiding some of the aluminum in the early part of life. The CDC catch-up schedule with low aluminum in the green has less aluminum toxicity over the first 7 to 30 days of life, and then our alternative catch-up schedule is less. So the paper goes into these use cases, specific use cases, and what this really shows, and it's a very powerful demonstration, that for any individual patient, any individual child, the calculations that we do can be conducted at any time in their life. If a parent is forced by the court to vaccinate, if the court's considering a vaccine catch-up schedule, if the state has taken away exemptions and people are forced to vaccinate or move, the calculations can be done. And individual by individual by individual. Now, IPAK's not in position to provide this as a service, and I would never do this for any individual myself. But nevertheless, because I'm not a practicing doctor and I'm not going to grift and make money off of people's fear. But what we are going to be doing is hopefully building an app that can allow patients and parents to do this, and pediatricians to realize what the effect is, what they're doing. We have 3 peer-reviewed publications now, one of which was under attack for threat of retraction, and I believe we won that argument. I haven't heard back from the journal, but so far the paper is still there. So if we look at the first use case, I'm not going to go into great detail, but it's a never vaccinated 6-month-old male who enters the CDC schedule at the age of 6 months. It could result from a custody situation, or parents disagree on the choice to vaccinate or not, and so on, or a change of, some change in life. And you can see that the data present as we just showed them under low AL. You can see that on the right-hand side, what you're seeing is the breakup of the prolonged chronic toxicity. So, aluminum toxicity is not just acute. It's not just for a few days, whole body aluminum toxicity. Now, here's a use case that we looked at for 18 months, never vaccinated 18-month-old male who has to enter the CDC schedule at the age of 18 months. That would be like a custody situation where the court agreed. And the third use case, a never vaccinated 8-month-old male who enters the CDC schedule at the year of 4 years and 8 months. Again, revocation of philosophical and religious exemptions, and parents are rushing to get their vaccines for the child. You can see that the catch-up schedule has the highest amount of toxicity. But because the child is a bit older, and due to body weight, the total amount of time and toxicity is lower. Here's a 7-month-old, same thing. Revocation of rights of exemptions and when they start vaccinating the CDC schedule. Use case number 5. This is, kind of a nightmare situation. You've got a male who is vaccinated until 3 months of age, and then a nightmare because there's a 6-month hiatus, and then the CDC catch-up schedule. They say, okay, wait a minute, we're gonna start vaccinating them again under the CDC catch-up schedule, and look what happens here. In the black is the if you just enter the schedule on time and you don't try to catch up. The yellow is if you catch up. The green is if you use the low AL option, and the purple is our alternative vaccination schedule. So, the paper will be coming out soon. I just sent in the last galley proof reviews, and I want to thank an anonymous donor who pitched in $1,500 towards a $2,000 open access fee. The way that we do research here at IPAK is that we do it independently of whether we know it's going to be open access or not. The journals that we publish in are not predatory journals. They are journals that have either a closed access option or an open access option. And then once the study's done, we turn to the public and we say, if you want this open access, you paid for this science, it's 100% funded by the public. If you want it open access so that everybody can get this paper, then here's what we have to do. We have to fundraise for that. And we had a donor step up who kicked in $1,500, and she's a wonderful person. But the other 500 is more or less cost covered by some pocket change that we have in IPAK. But if you do want to support the open access option, you can certainly kick in as well at the IPAK website. However, go to Laurel's fundraiser first. There's this collision of needs and competing demands here. But go to Laurel's website first, please. I'm going to ask you to do that so that we can make sure that at least today or for the next few days, she has a chance of having your attention, please. I'll be back again soon. We'll be doing a podcast interview with Dr. Chris Shaw to talk about the IPAK initiated aluminum dose escalation study that the University of British Columbia has proposed to IPAK. Okay, so we are doing fundraising for that as well. These are tough times. I understand it, but we have to stand up this way. We're standing up this way because in reality, the vaccine schedule is a toxic schedule. And we know this. Now we need the empirical data to show what the effect of following the CDC schedule is, and the dose escalation studies that the FDA has never done. That's what we're all about here. And I want to also remind people it is not too late. You have until the 26th to register for a class with me on biology if you want to understand the basics of biology, the fundamentals. And the course in analytics is coming along nicely too. If you want to learn how to use a spreadsheet and add that skill to your resume so that that you can tell people that you know how to use spreadsheets, we have those two courses open. You can go to ipak-edu.org, make an investment in yourself, and empower yourself through knowledge. That's all I have for today. Appreciate it if you would please like this and share this. When it gets to YouTube, please like, share, and comment so that it can increase in circulation. Please share it across all of your groups. I know there's so much information that's being thrown out all the time, but I want Laurel to have a fighting chance here. So please do your best so that the people that watch the front end of the video have a chance to learn about Laurel. And I'm on your side in all things in terms of human and individual rights. So thank you very much. Dr. Jack signing off.